little more formal open, actually, I think we'll do today. So,
oh yeah,
welcome back to the Hunt Hike Harvest podcast. I am Joel Rather, here with Jason Hirsch, as always, or at least
not as always.
Most of the time. Yeah.
I'm not rotating my shoe trees again today, so we're good.
So, and we're back. We have a guest today on the show that I'm excited to sit down and talk to. Got an opportunity. Have seen him present numerous times. I've seen him on Full Draw Film Tour, and just good to always continue to grow our network. So we have roped in Trevon Stoltzfus today. Trevon, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
It's good to get an opportunity to chat with you. We appreciate your time, and I know just kind of pre-show we talked about some things that we want to touch on. I hope we get to a lot of them, but I don't know, where should we start?
It's your podcast, bro. I remember I'm the secondary guest here.
Yeah, he's just
not the primary, obviously.
He's just the good looks, but
I doubt that.
So
I'm the nerd. I'll fill in the nerdy details when he starts getting nerdy on things.
Yeah,
I'll have to inform you on what that means.
Yeah, there'll have to be like an after action review of all the tech stuff that Trevon said, be careful what you ask for, because I wanted to talk about some production value stuff with the films he does with. So their one of their ventures is Outback Outdoors. Let's maybe start there and talk about. I've read through. I've seen a bunch of the videos and films that you guys have put together, and I think for me, as we start kind of trying to capture stuff and film things, and I watch so much of what other people do, and I think that as you get past just watching stuff and actually starting to take some higher level kind of lens to things, and you start actually looking at the production and how do they portray things and camera angles, and even stuff that goes on in the background, like how do you build into it with music and all these different things. And so I know that you guys have kind of a high standard with some of that stuff, how you've kind of evolved over time with that. But start with maybe the onset of Outback and what you guys kind of have put together there. Who else is? I know you have a multitude of people there, and we'll kind of kick off there and move our way down as we go.
Yeah, well, I guess it all begins. I was born at an early age. You guys got to be quick. I'm just going to throw some zingers in there.
Just making sure we're on top of things. It was definitely an early age. It wasn't the later ages.
All right. So I'm from New Mexico. My dad did not hunt. My grandparents, my uncles, they hunted. So for me, my introduction to hunting was through family. But I was very fortunate to have my uncles, my cousins, my grandpa. And that's where I fell in love with the outdoors. As I grew up in New Mexico hunting mule deer, elk, antelope, I did a little bit of guiding. Later in life, life goes on and got married. And I ended up, my job moved me up to northern Colorado. In the meantime, a caveat is I had learned to write. I had fallen in love with creative writing. I had a sixth grade teacher who changed my life in regards to the way I looked at writing. He did a simple exercise of, I want you to write a full page, not article, but a full page essay, you could say, on your favorite food. And I just happened to pick hamburger. And I just remember thinking, wow, I can take the written word, and if I do this properly, I can actually tap into your salivary glands. I can make you hungry and your mouth start watering if I do this right. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So as I grew up, I continued to work on creative writing and setting scenes and introducing ideas and thoughts that tied into sensory, sight, smell, hearing, all of these different things. Well, when I moved to Colorado, it was really cool because all of a sudden I was in a place where not only could I be around antelope, elk, and mule deer, but I could be around within an hour bighorn sheep, mountain goats, moose. I mean, it was just a plethora of outdoor smorgasbord, if you will.
Right.
So,
sure.
Having grown up in New Mexico, this was pre-Onyx, digital mapping. I had learned how to scout a area using paper maps. And through a friend of mine who was in the gas and oil industry, I met at church, and a big-time bow hunter. He was developing a program that if you look at Onyx, it was a precursor to Onyx. Not that Onyx bought him out or anything like that, but that was the idea we were going for. And this was in the early 2000s. And it was basically integrating BLM, sat imagery, black and white aerial photography, and topo maps over GMUs, or having those overlays of GMUs on top of there, being able to integrate waypoints. But we didn't have smartphones. You had to hook up your Garmin GPS with a cable to your laptop, and in your truck, you could drive around and see where you were at. So it's a little bit more oriented toward the oil and gas, as he mapped out their lines and their all that stuff, their oil wells. But we used the ability to do it in hunting situations. We teamed up with a company called Eastman's Hunting Journal in order to come out with this virtual research technology. It was too soon. It was just too soon. We partnered with them, and through that partnership, that's how I got my first step into the outdoors. The hard part was, it was the customer service that went along with this program, which was a subscription type based program. You buy this, you can do this. And we spent hours with people on, how do you turn the computer on? What's a cursor? Okay, so mind you, this was in the early 2000s. Okay, exactly, yeah. But we're talking about the median.
I'll help them understand what a cursor is.
Right.
I'll be your tech support.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we ended up doing so much of. It just was too soon. So to make this shorter, it just, again, now look at Onyx, and we're like, well, we had that idea years ago, right? Of course, Onyx has taken it way past where we had it, with the resources and the research and development that they have. But in that introduction, Mike Eastman came to me and said, hey, would you write an article on research and mapping and researching elk? I'm writing a new book called Elk Hunting the West, the Eastman Way. And and I did. So I wrote a chapter on using maps, but also using some of the new digital technologies. Well, the first edition of that has my name in the author. Since then, in their second edition, it says Eastman's staff. So part of that was because I went to work for them. Great experience. Learned a lot. That's when I really started running cameras seriously. I got an opportunity to film Guy Eastman and Cameron Haynes and some of those guys, and but it just didn't work out because they wanted everybody in house there and outside of Powell, Wyoming, and I wasn't moving from northern Colorado, so I stepped away. This is getting more towards the mid 2000s, and I'll tell you a little story of the integration of hunting videos and hunting TV shows.
Hey guys, we hope you're enjoying today's episode with Trevon Stoltzfus. We are absolutely loving so much of the information that he is sharing through his experiences, as well as some of the people that he's been fortunate enough to learn from along the way. We want to ask you to like and subscribe to our page. We would greatly appreciate your support, and we thank all of you that are current subscribers that are already liking and subscribing to our page. We also want to make sure that we thank some of those people that have supported us along the way. If you've noticed in our last couple podcasts, we've got a new banner from our friends at Numa. Numa is some of the best gear we have ever put on and taken into the backcountry, supported by their lifetime guarantee with all of their equipment. It is absolutely our go-to. Be sure to check out the show notes. There's a 20% off discount code there provided just for watching our show. We greatly appreciate you guys watching that, and we want to pass on that value to you, as well as a ton of other discounts with some of our exercise and training equipment, as well as some of our nutritional products. Be sure to check those out. Take full advantage of those. Thank you guys for watching. Now back to our episode.
at this time, we also had, if you remember, there was some networks, TNN, Turner had put on a couple different, and they would put these hunting shows on, primarily whitetail and turkeys, let's be honest, but they would film.
Yeah.
Then there's a little company called Primos. Primos started coming out with their Truth series. Now, I still have, and maybe it's worth something, I don't know, but I have a collection of the Truth elk hunting VHSs in my office that I will keep forever. I watch those things a billion times, right?
Yeah.
But I was seeing how people were portraying hunting. And then all of a sudden, the Sportsman's Channel, Outdoor Channel, there's these networks started. Actually, before those, there was the Man Channel. I don't know if any of you guys remember this going back.
I know the Man Show.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had their own channel.
There was a network called the Man Channel, and they did a ton of hunting. So when I left Eastman's, I actually went and I worked with a company called the Best of the West, which was primarily a long-range hunting, shooting stuff at 900 yards, right? Well, they brought me on more for some bow hunting flair to kind of mix it up. Now, my job wasn't to shoot things at long range with a bow. They just were wanting a little more bow hunting to open the option. So I did that for a little while. But what I wanted was to be able to show the way I hunt. I can't afford to go to Kyrgyzstan or any of the stands and hunt Marco Polo sheep. I really can't afford. I've never been able to afford a $50,000 desert sheep in Mexico. So the hunts we wanted to film were hunts that normal guys could do, over the counter, maybe a premium draw if you could draw it, that type of stuff. So that's where Outback Outdoors got founded. It started with me and some buddies, Adam Wells, Dave Baronio. At the beginning, there was a good buddy named Jim Brennan and Ryan Litwin. And so we came out with this idea, hey, let's start filming our hunts in a creative way. Now, let me make a caveat. So now I have fallen in love with filming. But I've also been watching Nat Geo, and that's where I got a lot of my inspiration, a lot more of that Discovery Channel type stuff. And I'm looking at these different depths of field, and right about that same time, a show came out called Heartland Bowhunter, and Sean and Mike, they were, and there were some other people involved in the early years, were using, and this is the early years of the DSLR. And they were using this, they were getting this depth of field that was much more cinematic than what we were using with the hit the red button on the video camera and go type of stuff. So I was also getting into photography. So this whole transition of becoming kind of a camera geek, along with buddies who were interested in the same type of look, we started making this transition away from video cameras to pure DSLR. Now, what we're doing there is we're making something that's already hard, extremely hard, because now we're carrying multiple lenses. Everything, of course, is in manual. You're having to grab your focus manually, all of these things. But in order to be able to get this depth of field, you're running your f-stop at like 2.8, depending upon the lens, whatever the low end of the lens is, that shrinks your focal point, gives you that depth of field. That's what we were going for. And all of it is in a non-controllable setting. You can if I was a wedding photographer or wedding videographer, I could, I say those are probably the two closest, because you're never going to get a bride to go, oh, stop. Could you walk down the aisle again? You will be accosted, right? And you're never going to get an elk to say, oh, well, okay, elk, could you come back in? So what you get is live. And our goal was to get it as it happened. There were times where we had to go back and we have to get this shot to make the story. But as we progressed in our journey of storytelling, we got really, really good about not having to do B-roll. Meaning, after the fact B-roll. We're always getting B-roll as we're making our stock. Our cameraman's getting close-ups on the boots, close-up on, whatever. But our goal was, when we were done with the hunt, we're not having to go back out there, right, and recreate something. But in a film, and let me tell you the difference. It's very interesting. People get real confused between a TV show and a film, or a short film, something like that. They're very different. In a short film, you're really, in my opinion, you have a storyline laid out, and you're building that storyline. In a TV show, you're just hitting record. Two very different things.
Right.
Yes, they put music behind a TV show. A lot of it due to the fact that they don't their audio sucks, and so they mask it with music. Whereas a film, everything is, from your audio to the background music, all has to be built in, and you're creating an emotional push towards this event or this series of events, right? And at the end, you should have a completion of this story, or unless it's a cliffhanger. Let's be honest. We can have a film that doesn't have an ending, and it can be very powerful. So that was my goal. So here I am, this kind of a redneck, guy that all of a sudden I've opened my mind up to this creative aspect, and really made filming much more difficult. Everything it's crazy. Everything we did not make up. Let me tell you, we are not pioneers. We are copycats. Okay, we were inspired by Nat Geo, Discovery Channel. I mentioned Mike and Sean at Heartland Bowhunter, and even Sick Manta with Donnie Vincent and those guys, very influential. But the difference is, we wanted to do it where Mike and Sean and the guys at Heartland Bowhunter were primarily doing just whitetail in their backyard and turkey when they started. Now they've gone off from there. And they even went into waterfowl and some of that stuff. But we wanted to do it Western big game hunting. So let's take something hard, and now let's pack in the backcountry where we have tons of batteries that need to be charged. So anyway, that's kind of the synopsis of where we got to with Outback Outdoors. And then, so as time went on, we went on the Sportsman's Channel. Did really good on the Sportsman's Channel. Actually made a stint on Amazon Prime. We're doing really good there. And then they started cutting out shows. I think Randy and Tim Burnett with Solo Hunter. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're like, our show's not live. And nobody could give us a reason why. Right. And so over time, we just said, you know what? We're just going to keep sharing our adventures. And then we looked back, and we had 10, 15 years of adventures in episodes. So we put it on YouTube for everybody to watch. So you can go to Outback Outdoors on YouTube, and you can watch a mountain of videos. Matter of fact, you go to season 5, and I look like a young man. I look like a very young man.
That was early in life.
That was early in life. Yeah, before this shoulder surgery and I think 4 knee surgeries ago. But that's kind of, I know that's a long way, but that's kind of my journey to where we are now. I've had people like Dustin Etheridge and Garrett Drack, and Corey Arola now is what you would call main head of production for what we do. And we've slowed down a lot. We're not back to the 13 episodes, and we're not putting as much content out anymore just because life happens. But yeah, my whole passion is to, my goal was to share an adventure that somebody else could do. But I felt like I could do that better if I did it in a cinematic way where I connected with their emotion. and we had good audio. One thing I always point out when I'm talking gear is you can have the best video. If you have crappy audio, it's good. If you have crappy video and great audio, it can be great. You can make it great. Audio is where you need to put your big boy pants on, and that's where a ton of the work that we do in the field comes with, and we've made every mistake in the book. As far as
talk about those, that was gonna be my next question. Was like, what are the mistakes, right? Like, and not necessarily, and yes, you probably classify them as mistakes, but what are some of those like growing pains and teaching moments that you guys went through where you go like, aha, like this is a snippet, a little like nuggets, right, of like opportunity where you go, we got to make sure we do this, right? You missed that chance, you missed that opportunity, you missed that, like what are some of those, if you were to list off like 3 of your like golden nuggets of that, right? If you can have,
this is off the cuff. I might have more than 3. First one, get your focus. Okay? You have to understand how to grab your focus quickly. Okay?
Focus, and you're referring to camera focus, not like your mental clarity, right?
No.
Yeah, like you're actually your hardware focus on your camera.
Right. What I'm talking about now is all gear related. Okay? I'm not talking about anything hunting related. This is literally the camera nerd in me coming out. So this is for a budding videographer, cinematographer, whatever you want to call it. I want to capture my adventure. Step 1, practice grabbing your focus under stressful conditions. Okay? Everybody thinks, well, he's a cameraman, he's the hunter. The hunter's going to have the adrenaline. Your cameraman is going to have every bit of adrenaline as the hunter, especially when they're inexperienced. We found you cannot go and find and recruit a cameraman who has film experience and take them into the woods. What you can do is take a hunter sometimes. Let me go back. What you can do sometimes is get a hunter and teach them to be a filmmaker or a photographer or a cinematographer. Okay?
Right.
We tried it the other way. It didn't work because they couldn't move around animals. They didn't understand how to read body language. They didn't understand the basics of wind.
Yeah.
Now that's falling into the hunting. So I will say that. But so here I am. I have Joe Blow, my buddy, who's a great hunter, and he's very interested in coming in and videoing. So what do I have to do? I have to take him through basically a camera school, if you will, and they have to understand how a camera works. So you have ISO, you have your f-stop, your focal point, you have your shutter speed, you have all of these things that are the manual adjustments for your camera. Once you understand these manual adjustments, you can run any camera that ever existed, photography or videography.
Manual is the mode that nobody ever puts their camera in because they don't know what ISO and f-stop, and they just go to the A denotation, which is automatic, which means let the camera choose for me.
Right. And in a video camera, that just the normal video camera, it will have a manual mode, but your ISO will be called your gain. So it's a little bit different, and then you can integrate filters. Again, I can get really deep in the water here. But what we found out is we would go and we would put on these camera schools, and we don't do it anymore. It just was we would bring in 20, 25 guys, okay, not charge them a dime. Go through, and I'd get 3 guys out of that group that could actually run a camera. What I found is most of the guys that showed up wanted to be in front of the camera. They didn't want to be behind the camera. They wanted to be in front of the camera, and they wanted to be the Michael Waddell, right? They wanted to be the Cameron Haynes of the thing. We could weed through those guys pretty quick because they couldn't run a camera. They didn't really have interest in running a camera, and that's not what we needed. Okay, we needed somebody that could be behind the camera. Now, the thing about being on a team is if you're behind the camera and you understand that, now all of a sudden you're going to get a chance to be in front of the camera because you're going to draw a good tag and we're going to want to film it. And all of us, meaning at the time it was Adam Wells, Dave Baronio, those guys primarily, and even back in the day with Jim and Ryan, we all could run a camera. So we'd go out 2 or 3 at a time, and you could hand a camera, boom, boom, boom. This guy's hunting, boom. And in some situations, we all had tags, and we'd switch up, right? So here we would run these camera schools. We'd get these guys. And in the meantime, that's how I met Garrett Drack, Dustin Etheridge, who ended up working for us, and then now Tanner Vernon, who is a guy that's been working for about 8 years, and Tanner's one of my dearest friends, and is a great under pressure cameraman and a great hunter in general. He doesn't have the passion for filmmaking that I do, but he has the skill set to capture it, and that's what it takes. So that's how kind of we developed this idea. And then, of course, we were Canon guys back in the day. I still am a huge fan of the Canon DSLR picture profile. I think the color's more vibrant, takes less post-production and color correction to bring out that vibrancy. And now we use all Sonys because of the mirrorless. It's just the light gathering capabilities is phenomenal when you start getting into the Sony series of DSLRs. But the problem is you're dealing with a native lens. We could get off-brand lenses, but they just didn't have the clarity. So at one point we're running Canons, and we have 2 or 3 systems all set up. 20, we would run the D5s or the D6s, and which gave us good photography and good videography. So we always had the dual threat, okay, boom, great. We're flipping it over. We're taking pictures as we're doing, because the imagery portion is also important. We can't forget about that. So we were training photographers and videographers. Then you go into the audio caption. So we're building these cages that would have this. I mean, we went to a DSLR that in all intents and purposes was the same or similar weight to a small video camera.
Right.
But now we got to put an external mic on. We put a cage on to hang maybe an external monitor, because now sometimes the monitors were stuck. That you couldn't fold them out. You couldn't see them in bright light. Crud, we're running out there with a 25-pound tripod and camera setup. All the lightweight stuff that we wanted, we threw out the door because of the quality. So there was always a trade-off of weight versus quality. When you're hunting in a tree stand, when you're hunting turkeys, that's not a big deal. But when you're packing in 5 miles to hunt elk or mule deer, something like that, that's a big deal. When you're belly crawling in sagebrush to kill an antelope with a bow, that's a big deal. So these are all the hurdles we had to jump over. And let me tell you right now, if you're listening to this, and you're like, this is me, I want to do this cinematic deal, it has to be number one, because you will go out one time in this system and go, heck with that, I'm going to go buy a small video camera that's 4K, and I'm just going to hit my zoom and hit record. It's easier, but you will not have the same look. You won't have it. So what these guys do is they go out and they shoot 3 minutes of a hunt where they kill, and then they come back in and they fake everything else. Mm-hmm. It's horrible. Yeah. It's horrible, because we are not actors.
Right.
We are not actors, and I don't know anybody, whether it's and I'm a big fan of Jason Matzinger. Big fan of Zinger. He's done some great stuff over the years. But if you look, you will see B-roll shot before or after the fact, and in the hunting, there will be a hunting sequence that's there. It'll be clean. It'll be crisp. That whole 9 yards, but everything else around it is all done behind or in front of the fact. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can still tell a story doing that. But our job or our objective was to get it all real time. So we made up, you will see some shakiness, but that was part of it. There was times when we were trying to hit our focus and maybe we were a little bit late, but it was in the moment. boom, boom, boom.
Right.
So that kind of is how Outback Outdoors evolved. And
So that's point number one.
Yeah. That's
We got there.
okay. Some groundwork for some of the other points.
No, you're fine, and obviously your passion is coming through
I love it.
tremendously.
Yeah. I'm not
All right,
going to
good.
cut it off.
But
I
yeah,
love it.
we're rolling here. I love it. Keep going.
Point two. Point two is committed. You have to be committed to the shot. Okay. If the cameraman, who is your hunting partner, and maybe this little caveat to this number two, your hunting partner, I think the only thing harder to choose than your hunting partner is your wife. Okay. You have to be able to get along. Okay. That's hard. It's hard to pick. It's hard to find them. You know, and I've
Yeah.
been so blessed. I've had such great hunting. Matter of fact, I'm probably the one that's hard to get along with. Let's just be honest here. I'm probably the one that's hard to get along with.
If
They're
you're looking
great.
around the room and wondering who the hard one is to get along with and you can't find it, it's probably you.
So
Yeah.
with that being said, though, everything has to revolve around the shot, and when the communication, of course, has to be there, and the shot's not there, you don't take the shot. That's huge. That's huge. If this is what you want to do, hey, if you want to go hunt, God bless you. Go hunt. But don't make your main goal to be make this film or this adventure, and then you don't get the shot, right? So that has,
Right.
and
yeah.
we've made that mistake. The other mistake we've made was not wearing earbuds or over the head earphones, because nothing's worse than coming back. You have a phenomenal shot. Everything's in clear. And of course, you're watching it on this little screen in the field and you're high-fiving because you killed this bull and he was and the audio's not even there because something got bumped or whatever. But if you're wearing a lav mic, which we always had lav mics, and it's scratching against my bino harness. And so the whole time it's crappy audio. All right. Well, we run a shotgun mic, right? So we're going to get some audio. But I love to hunt mule deer in wind because it's easy to spot and stalk mule deer when it's a little
For sure.
windy. So now you have crappy ambient audio, and now you have – so where's your audio? Well, again, going back to one of those points I made earlier about you can have the best footage, but if you have crappy audio, it can only be decent. It can never be great.
Right.
Makes for a lot of voiceovers and trying to narrate from away from the shot or away from the moment than necessarily in the moment.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, you could get real creative, and I have done it, where you Foley stuff. And if you don't know what Foley is a terminology used in movie making where they come back and add audio, crisp audio later. Go on
Like
YouTube,
sound effects and things like that.
Go on YouTube and Google Foley, and you'll
Yeah.
get to see these guys watching this big thing and the clump of the horse, and they've got these two things in a sandbox, and they're going clump, clump, matching the audio or matching the footsteps on the. So we have had to do that.
Not quite like Monty Python clapping the coconuts
It's
together.
very
in real
similar.
life. Yeah.
It's very similar, so the pull of the sword. I've never pulled a sword and it had that sing of the the zing. Yeah, it never does that, right? That's Foley. So you have to either that or you have to spend a ton of time in post, and most people won't do it. The equipment I have in my office here, I probably have $75,000 in production equipment. Okay, but that's over 20 years time that I've collected that, right? I didn't write a check for $75,000, and my camera gear, I don't even know what the value is, but from the drones to the,
You're not shooting reds.
We went through a whole season with reds. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And what we found out with the reds was it was phenomenal, but the post-production time was even as snobby as we are in our cinematic film goals, the post-production time was so much that we looked, and at the time we were doing that, we were transitioning into the Sonys. We were comparing similar shots on the Red and similar shots on the Sony.
Right. Red is a brand, by the way, like a very high-end brand.
Right. It's okay. A red camera is a film camera. It's literally what's that? Not American Sniper, but what was the movie they shot with the 6 Navy SEALs that were actually 6 Navy SEAls?
Lone Survivor.
30. Dark 30.
Zero Dark 30. Yeah,
Zero Dark 30. They shot those all on Reds. That was the whole thing was on a red cameras. And there's Red Dragons, and there's all these different variations of the red camera. But we just, for what we even pulled back and said, no, Red's not, that's overkill. And there's something about, and we actually found this out in the whitetail woods. A red camera takes about 40 seconds to boot up, and it has it has a fan on it. And when it's really quiet in the whitetail woods, and you can see a buck coming, and you're like, hey, there's a buck, and then all of a sudden, we never blew any animals out, but to us,
right, like right in your little space, you're like, damn, somebody turn that fan off.
Right. So yeah, if I was doing a lot of studio work, cutaways, the spine takes, like these guys. One thing we hated doing, unless the film called for it, was an interview where a guy's sitting in front and he said, "Well, on the first day we got up in the tree," and we wouldn't show you that. Just come with us. Here we're getting up in the tree. I don't need to sit down and tell you what I'm doing. The reason I'm telling you is I don't have enough footage to show you. Okay?
Right.
So in our opinion, the spine take was a legitimate crutch because you didn't do your job in the film, of filming in the field. Okay.
Yeah.
So that
I got to imagine, just real quick, I want to ask a kind of a pigtail off of that. The kind of gear that you guys are using in the field, I've got to imagine there's got to be some durability standards for you, right? When you had kind of alluded to audio where it's like, oh, I bumped this and it turned it off, or I'm just thinking along those lines, like the equipment that you guys have effectively hand selected has to be able to, be in a backpack. It has to be able to, effectively bounce off of trees or branches or, whatever it might be to get the shots that you have. So can you briefly touch on some of the durability factors that are going into the equipment that you're selecting and using?
Yes. This is,
obviously it's not like a GoPro where you can just like throw it down the mountain and go pick it up.
Right, which I still feel the GoPro's a great, I think it should be in anybody because it gives you a point of view, mainly back on us, that we can use. If you're using a GoPro and you're trying to film a hunt, just use your iPhone. Don't use a GoPro.
Yeah.
Because a GoPro's you can't see what's going on. It's too far. But to turn it around on yourself, it does give you that POV, that point of view perspective. That's awesome. Here's a couple things. We screwed up. That's how we found out. I.e., the weakest point on the camera usually is the 3.5 millimeter jack for your audio. It's going to go out before any other piece of the camera goes out. The reason we know that is in the old Canons, we're running a shotgun mic off the top for our ambient, and it goes in, and that jack just literally quits working because of the bumping and all that stuff. You have to, I can't stress this enough, you better have a clear filter on your lens. Clear filter, it's just a filter, round filter. We don't get anything that's tinted or anything like that because, again, we're running in manual and we're offsetting, the actual tinted filters just with the camera settings themselves. But that $14.99 lens filter will save your lens when you drop that. because it will shatter. It's like a phone, the little plastic thing you put on your phone that when you drop your phone, instead of the screen shattering, it breaks or it gets marked. Yeah, we learned that the hard way. So we don't order. We don't order.
And glass isn't cheap.
Right? Yeah, 70 to 200. You're looking at $2,800, right?
Yeah.
For a 2.8. And we primarily 70 to 200 is a bow hunting lens. It's the best. We 90% of what we shoot's on a 70 to 200. You know, it's a longer lens, but it's worth its weight in gold as far as your look, the focal point, the clarity. It's beautiful. We do have 1 to 4s and we have a 2 to 6. So it's 2 to 600, 1 to 400, but they're just not as clear as the 70 to 200. But if we buy those by the dozen, so that's the first thing I'll say. You've got to have that. Batteries. I know that we have tried every knockoff name battery. They just don't. The name brand. The native batteries are better. They're twice as expensive, but they're going to last longer. One of the things I would also say,
camera batteries or like battery packs.
Camera batteries.
Camera batteries. Gotcha.
Yeah, camera batteries. The other thing is, if you're going, you got a bull bugling and you think he's going to come in, and you look down and your battery's at 30%, switch the battery out to a new battery. That goes back to one of those helpful hints. Don't try it. Well, I've got 25% left. Sure you do. Sure you do. And that bull hangs up for 10 minutes at 50 yards and you don't have a shot. And he finally comes in and you have a shot and battery and the camera goes dark. Okay.
Yeah.
We've had that happen. We've also had some issues where you need to send your cameras in for repair. Don't every season, end of season, send your lenses and or inspect them. I mean, if they're in good shape there. But if you see anything issues, anything loose, don't try and repair it yourself. Send it back to Sony or Canon or whatever. Get it repaired. Connection issues will always happen when the guy's at full draw and the buck finally stands up.
Right.
Murphy's going to show up.
Murphy's Law, yep.
Right, for sure.
I think those are some of the main things. Have a plan. We always run secondary cameras, especially in spot and stock situations if we can. We're running 2 or 3 cameras on the same thing. Spot and stock, let's say we're in some country where you have a camera over the shoulder of the shooter. They go. You have another camera here, and if you can do it, you have another camera here. It gives us 3 different. So you're seeing a panoramic view of as we go in. Here's the buck bedded, and the guys are coming in. Then you can cut to over the shoulder. Then you can cut to maybe a lot of people don't have that many people, but for spot and stock, the best thing you could do is have an extra camera that you can cut to. GoPros. I'm not a big fan of GoPros on your bow.
Yeah.
Unless it's back at you. But just the fact, if you put a GoPro on your bow, you need to shoot with the weight of that GoPro on your bow. It will affect your balance. Everything you do, you cannot risk hurting or wounding an animal because you're trying to get footage.
Right.
So you have to separate the hunting. It needs to be ethical, morally responsible, and then how do we capture it on film? And if you're going to merge those two, that you need to practice.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, right? Like, and I think to put us even in the category of novice would be probably high praise at this point. You know, when we think about some of the stuff that we've done, and I think more or less it's just been a matter of
we're walking through the woods like this
as we've gone out. You know, we're taking for what past 4 or 5 years, I mean, we've taken our better cameras and we've had GoPros on hand, and we'll use our phones here and there, and different lenses and some stuff like that. And the reality of it is you find out real quick that it's not as easy as just like carrying around a camera and just capturing stuff, right? Like you have to have so much more of a kind of forethought into so many things, right? Which is either that you can anticipate certain things that are kind of out ahead of you, that you step back, right? Because I think a lot of times us as hunters, like, we get in the zone and in the moment of the hunt, and we're not actually taking that step back and recognizing, like, wow, like look at what our backdrop looks like, at specific times of the day. And like, there's been a lot of times where, he stopped me or I'll stop him and go like, oh man, like, look, we're about to head down. Last year, there was this area we went through, and like, there was all this deadfall, and it was literally across this like kind of, drainage, and all of the deadfall was probably 4 to 6 feet off the ground. And we're literally going to like scale our way over the top of this thing. And we kind of stopped, and I'm like, that's a really cool shot, because like, stepping back from it,
right,
you see like that's a unique situation. Right. And like, if we just put our head down and focus on not falling on our asses, which is what you do when you start going across there, obviously, and then miss that. Like you said, and I know I mentioned earlier, we had this conversation with Justin and Garrett from Top Priority, and a lot of things that you're saying I can recall, those guys talking about, which is that if you go do that, and then after you get across there, go, oh man, we should have filmed that portion of it. Go back and do it again. It's not the same. You completely just missed out on that. And as you mentioned, we're not actors. I can't like ham it up and be like, oh, like make it look really cool this time. Like if it doesn't happen organically, or if you miss those opportunities, it's hard to go back. Like, we talked about like glassing and things like that. If you're looking and you're trying to track and find animals, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got 2 over here, whatever, be like, oh, hey, go do that again and make it look cool this time.
I think that's
like,
the hard part
so many
too,
things like that
we're
happen.
running a 2-man crew, and so we're acting as hunters, but at the same time we also have to, in parallel thought, be filmmakers. Right. And it's more difficult when you're taking your mind off of the hunt to go, oh, I've got to tell a story and film. It's a lot easier if you've got a film crew or a producer type person that would be already making those decisions and not worrying necessarily about the hunt. Right. Where, you let the hunters hunt and let the filmmakers film. And at the end of the day, you bring those two thoughts together, right? And you storyboard it or whatever it might be. And then you can obviously, Trevon, you can tell me I'm wrong here or tag along to that.
Here, let me say this. It matters what you're trying to do. If you're trying to capture the adventure, that means you're gonna get a ton of footage. Okay. If you're going out and shooting a film where you have control over everything, totally different. Then you have a film director, you have a producer, you have a camera crew, right? But no, you guys got to think of it this way. You're all your hunter, your director, your film producer, your cinematographer. Right. You're everything in one. So here's something that might help you guys. Both of you have to have this thought. These are the shots you need to get. First of all, you need to do interviews in the field. And it's as simple as turning the camera on the other and say, what are we doing? And then let him talk. Okay?
Yeah.
You're pretty good at that.
Lead your viewers, right? And that's true. Some people are better. So lean into their strengths. What are we doing? Where are we at? What just happened? Okay?
All right.
Now, second, so that's first. Interviews in the field. Okay? Because you mentioned earlier going back and doing voiceovers. A voiceover is amazing in a film. When you're doing an adventure in the moment, it's a crutch. You didn't get it. You didn't get it, so now you're feeling it, right? I've done voiceovers, and they're very effective. Very effective. So I'm not poo-pooing them completely, but let's get as much in the field as we can. Second, what are you seeing? Think of a macro lens. Okay? Wide angle, huge country. Okay? That's where time lapses come in effectively. We try and get 4 to 5 time lapses a day. And the way that you can do that is you're sitting up glassing. You have one guy who's running a camera. You take the other camera, you put the right lens on it, you put it up there, boom. Now you get a time lapse, especially like a Sony. It has a built. You don't even have to have an intervalometer like you used to with the Canons. You just literally go and you do a time lapse, and it's sitting over there running, doing a time lapse, which you'll stitch together in post, no big deal. And you're sitting there still doing your stuff. Okay, so. We're talking about environment. We're talking about setting the scene. Okay, so that's 2. Okay, and that's where time lapses. That's where, and you can do video time lapses too. That'll work too. Okay, you can crunch those down later in post. But wide angle. Where are we at? What's the big picture? Third, lifestyle. Okay, what I mean by lifestyle, that's where we get creative. That's where we start running a 50. With a 1.2 f-stop where we're getting this, but we're doing it as we're moving through country. You talk about the deadfalls. So we're going to have a macro shot of that deadfalls, and I like it still. This whole pan thing, okay, I like it still. I like just a lockdown freaking shot of that deadfall. And then the next thing you're doing is it's a in-person as you're moving through. And then maybe the guy behind you is following you, okay? Mm-hmm. Maybe the guy behind gets to the side and gets a close-up where you're going to walk across this log like you're balancing, right? Boom, and it's a frame shot still, boom, and the boots walk through, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's glassing. You're sitting there glassing. And you're doing a rack focus if you're using Swarovski, from the Swarovski to the because if in a short focal length, you can get back and all of a sudden you can roll that focus. Okay, so that's 3. Our creatives, okay, our campfire at night, our star time lapse, which would again go back into the macro, but you can also get pretty friggin' creative with your time lapses with a tent and then the stars moving behind you. Okay, so that can even fall in both of those categories, right? Setting the scene and this people forget to show the viewer the conditions. So it's raining and you're stuck underneath a cedar bush because it's your only cover, and it's dripping off. You see it dripping, and all of a sudden, boom, we go to our slow motion, and we watch that dripping down into a puddle. Boom, boom, boom. What are we doing? We're setting the scene, but we're doing it creatively. So that's 3. 4, wildlife footage. Don't have the only wildlife footage you have be when you shoot the animal. If you're glassing, if you're talking about a buck, you better have footage of that buck.
See, my videos of all those squirrels and birds as we're sitting there waiting for shit to come in. See, it's legit. Yeah. I love watching when I'm sitting there waiting for something to come in, and I hear something, and then finally I'm able to pick out what that animal is that's making that noise. I love to just watch them and see, like, I'm effectively a tree or a rock. Like, he doesn't. I'm sure he knows I'm there, but he doesn't know I'm there. I just like to see what they do. Like, I'm just watching. I'm curious to know what the day-to-day activities of that squirrel or chipmunk or bird or whatever that is.
Right. Well, but don't when you in post, don't dwell on that too long. It's the same shot of a guy filling up with gas.
It's more about me trying to fill dead time while I'm waiting for something to show up. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I could burn the next 30 minutes watching this squirrel dig for nuts and go around the downfall. You
can do that. You just know if you're filming him, you're probably 5 to 8 seconds is going to be shown. The rest is going to be is going to go in the cutting room floor. But
I'm
it's the same thing.
My shots, my close-ups, and my zooms, and
exactly. And you can do that because all you need is one, and it really is a nice shot. You know, we always joke around. We're looking for 10s. If you grade a shot from 1 to 10, we're shooting 10. So the big joke for us a lot of times is a guy will be doing a shot and he'll turn around and look at you, and just with dead eyes he'll say, "That's a 10, baby," meaning he shot a 10, right? You know, whatever. But the guy filling up with the gas tank, right? Yeah. We all know how to fill our trucks up with the gas tank, unless you're saying something that is pertinent to the adventure. You're filling time.
Yeah, so I don't like those.
Fan of that. I have used it. But a lot of times it's because I'm talking about what we're doing, or we had a breakdown, or
You can use it
something
for foreshadowing, like you ran out of gas in the backcountry.
Yeah, there you go.
Remember that
So,
time?
yeah. So those are you got those three. Then you have your animal footage, and then of course you have your kill shot or your encounters. Okay. So if you look at those 5 shots and say, are we getting these? And both of you need to have that. Both of you need to look at that and go, okay, because if one of you's glassing, the other should be shooting. If it's so easy for us to go, okay, I'll put this down. I'm just going to enjoy the moment. And I'm at that point in my life right now where, like, I did a lot of self-filming for whitetail this last year, and I'm sometimes I look at it and I go, no, I'm not going to film that. That's just for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I would have never, ever, ever thought I would ever say that. But there's times I look at something and I said, I should be filming that. And I say, no, that's just for me. And that's okay.
It's funny because I do that a lot too. And I look at vistas, when we come into certain areas and I'm taking it all in, and I go, I think because I'm very amateur at all this stuff, I go, I'll take a picture or panorama or video or something like that, but it never really truly lives up to what my eyeballs are seeing. You know what I mean? It's like the first time you glance on it, that effect, and then I take a picture of it and I go back and look at it and go, yeah, that's not quite as memorable as I had it when I first laid eyes on it. The second time through is a lot less impactful on the hunt, and I think part of that is, the environment that you're in, the mood that you're in. It's the first day of the hunt, it's the last day of the hunt. Like, what your mindset is when you're walking through these areas and seeing these things, and going, oh my God, that's so beautiful. And then 7 days later, when you've put on 50 miles and you don't have anything in the cooler or whatever it is, and you go back and look at it and you're like, yeah, that's not as cool.
Right. But I think it goes back to what you said, right? Which is getting the ability to come closer to producing that 10, which then becomes that, right? Which is, man, I wish people could see or experience, and you talked about it right out of the gate, which is like through the use of language and things like that, even the video and photography and things, in a different medium. That's the goal, right? It's how do you then get better at sharing that, where people go, man, that's amazing. And it was the same experience you had as you captured it, right? And it comes down to some of these little tips and tricks and things that you've kind of shared, and making mistakes and understanding, like, how do you not let, like, for me, as soon as he started talking, I think we had one of those experiences where, as we stood and watched it, and this was not animals, this was getting out in the morning, and we were standing at the top of this ridge, and there's this giant kind of drainage and bowl, and it literally kind of wraps all the way around, and it's right as sun comes up, and there's a whole pile of fog that's off to the south of us, and the fog comes in, and like, as you see it happen, I'm like, oh man, we should capture this. And we weren't prepared for it. And what happens is the fog comes in, fog fills the whole valley in front of us. And this entire thing happens in a matter of
30 seconds, right?
It's absolutely amazing. Comes in, it fills right up to our eye level, like where we're standing physically. And in just that same amount of time, it sucks right back and leaves right where it came from. I've never seen anything like it before, and I've never seen anything like it since. And like, I thought back and went, oh man, like, we totally missed a really cool opportunity. I still can replay it in my head a million times, but to share that back would have been really cool, right?
I think you cannot mistake the use of your iPhone or the use of any smartphone now. Here's a caveat. I have a picture on my wall where Cam shot a bull on the 9th day when we were in the backcountry of Wyoming, and I was filming it, Cameron Haynes.
Yeah.
And we had 4 days worth of food. And he shot it on the morning of the 9th morning. I lost 13 pounds on that hunt. And I don't remember being hungry, to be honest. It's just a mindset. Once I got over my whining of being uncomfortable and being hungry, we got past that, and it was an amazing hunt. The camera that I took the picture with of both of us behind his elk, my camera on my iPhone is twice as good. Okay?
Yeah.
So, what I say that to say this. It's not in a situation like that where you're not ready. Pull your freaking phone out and video it.
Yeah.
Something is better than nothing. And then one thing I want to caveat is, again, what are you doing it for? Nowadays, we didn't have social media. So part of the whole experience that you're going to share with Hunt, Hike, Harvest, this whole 9 yards, what you guys are wanting to do is going to be this Instagram. I don't know if you use Facebook, but the Twitter, the TikTok, right? Whatever it might be. That's a totally different. This is all you need for that. And although it would be great to go, okay, I'm going to take this amazing footage and I'm going to edit it down to these TikTok pieces. Well, okay, if you have the manpower to sit there hours, and you know how many hours of edited footage, finalized production that I have, I could go through, I could pay somebody to go and put that in and put TikTok, and I'm not going to do it. It's not me. It's not who I am. But it is a way to reach the younger audience. So in the situation, you guys are actually in a position where perhaps you need, okay, here's the production for our film adventure type stuff, but let's not forget our social media stuff. And that's different. That's different. That's okay for you to pull out. And I always film everything here because I can actually use this in my films. Even though it's on an iPhone, it's not quite as good production as what I'm using on these nice DSLRs, but it's something. But nowadays, everybody films this way, right? For TikTok. For that. And so you just got to, what am I doing this for? And if you guys need those assets, you can, sitting there, you've done the squirrel in your instance, you've done, well, grab your phone and get the squirrel with this. So you can put it on TikTok, so you can put it on Instagram, right? Don't forget that. You can't go back out there and reshoot that. I know people do go and they do these recreates, and again, you're just not actors. So that's those are my helpful hints. Start small. Your first hunt maybe might not be best if it's your first hunt. You're doing this and you're packing in a solar charger and 3 cameras, and you've never done. Go out and practice. Go out and do something, a scouting trip, something. What are how are your batteries going to react to cold? I know for a fact there's been many a time I've slept with my batteries on my body in my sleeping bag because it was so cold.
Yeah.
Okay. When we went to
with Alex.
Yeah.
He did it.
We
did.
have a friend who climbed Everest, and that was a big concern, was memory and how electronics react to sub-zero temperatures.
Right. We when I killed my muskox in the Arctic Circle, we stayed in this little shanty, and the guide had a little oil heater in there. That freaking place was 85 degrees in there. I actually opened a window. I was so hot. But we would have to take our cameras and put them on the outside. There's a little porch. We'd put them there for an hour right when we got up in the morning. And then we could take them outside, because if we took them from inside to outside, they fogged up immediately because of the change in temperature. And then when we'd get back, we'd put them in the porch for an hour before we brought them inside. So you have to understand how your equipment's going to work, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, my head's spinning, and we talked about this. You said be careful what you ask for, and here we're.
No, I think it's all been great information for anybody who's awesome. And obviously your passion for filming and your experience and learning from your mistakes, things that we can do, mentally taking some notes about some things that we can probably do better in the field. And I think that speaks tremendously to obviously your success and the things that you've done, that you're willing to come on here and share this information with us and our listeners and viewers. So we appreciate all of the feedback and the time and the experience, because I know there's a lot of people in this world that wouldn't necessarily do that to that extent. And so it speaks highly to obviously your passion and your company.
Well, thanks, guys. I started this, that I didn't come up with any of this. Somebody taught it to me. It's the same thing when I talk about, when I do my seminars on hunting, on hunting strategy. I do hunting on understanding your actual. What is your effective range? Everybody talks about their effective range, and there's a method that we go through. It's really the alpha bow hunting process that really develops what is your effective range. I won't get into that now because that's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
But it's the same thing. You have to understand. You got to start from somewhere, and then you take those steps to understand. We can do another podcast on understanding your effective range. We could do a podcast on wind. I could talk for hours on just understanding wind. And because that's huge. People don't understand how the wind moves in the mountains. A little easier when you're in the flats, maybe in whitetail country, you still have some ridges and stuff still going to affect it, thermal stuff like that. But, that's important. So, but for me, again, the geeking out portion, it's all what you want, what's your end product going to be, and what are you satisfied with? And then you have to set goals. Just like in any athletic endeavor, I've got to set my goals. I've got to work towards those goals, and then I get my end result. The more work you put in, the more results you have. So
yeah.
Cool.
It's always a work in progress, right? And I think it's like anything, right? Like shooting your bow more routinely and going through the process, and all of this stuff is exactly the same thing, right? Like nobody goes out first time and goes, hey, let's film a hunt, and they get done and like, man, we crushed it. We got everything we needed. Everything turned out perfect. All the lighting was great. Like we didn't miss any opportunities. We got all the, the B-roll stuff, and it just doesn't happen that way. It's a constant thing that you have to practice. You have to gain knowledge about. You have to learn from other people. I think that's a lot of times. I think when we invite people and ask people to be on the podcast, which we've been, just so blessed with just people like yourself. They're like, yeah, man, let's do it. And I think him and I always have these offline conversations after the fact and go like, man, that was really cool. Like, look how much we learned from this person today, or look at the little tidbits of information. And, at times you're just sharing stories and things, and that's always great because I think we all love that stuff. And even as you mentioned with presenting, right? Like, I've learned a ton from you, and when we were at the CBA, I actually made a point to come up and just tell you, like, man, you're a tremendous presenter, right? Like, I have such a value in that because I present a lot, not on hunting. I present a lot on sports performance and training, and over 20 years of my career, I realized that it's not just about the information you provide, it's how you actually portray it and how you engage people. And like, I just complimented you on that because I was like, man, I really enjoyed listening to you speak. And I think that that's a craft in itself, just like anything else. And so I respect that. And at the same time, I'm very realistic knowing where we're at in this journey, and just to appreciate it and get the opportunity to sit and learn from people like yourself, and love to do one on wind and one on effective range and all these other things. And you're not too terribly far from us, and obviously we'd welcome you any time to stop in and see our shop, and we can talk more of shop. So
for sure. And I like I say, everything I'm telling, everything I've learned was taught to me by somebody else. And I always say this because wrestling was my passion as I grew up. I still am coaching wrestling. And when the Star Spangled Banner plays at the Olympics and our flag is the highest one, and there we have Jordan Burroughs or whoever standing, and he puts his head down and they put this gold medal around his chest, and he's got this look. I guarantee you they should be doing the same thing for the coaches and his training partners, because he didn't get there on his own, and he'll be the first to admit this. And I didn't get here on my own. I got here because of all of these people that invested in me and because of my curiosity. So I sure hope I don't ever come across like I'm a know-it-all. It's everything I learned from somebody else. And maybe through my 20 plus years of experience of presenting and hunting in the hunting industry, I've been able to refine it so it's maybe more palatable, and then take my mistakes and share those in a comedic type of way. Like in my seminar, I always show me making a mistake. I always show me missing something. Why? Because it happens. And because if I do it, and I've got this history of all of these critters I've been successful on, what you don't forget is, what about the ones I wasn't? And then now the information I have is relatable, because people can say, oh, well, I've made a mistake. If I've made a mistake, maybe I can also be successful. And now we have a communication bridge that is, I think, essential.
So. Yeah, most definitely. Well, we appreciate it. It's awesome to get an opportunity to steal an hour of your day. I know you're super busy, and we'll obviously keep in touch as we go kind of down the road here, and love to always welcome the opportunity to have more of these conversations with you, whether we're recording them or not. Doesn't really matter. I just enjoy getting a chance. We do to speak to people like yourself that share in such similar passions and things like that, and at the same time just be able to learn and be a fly on the wall with you, kind of taking us through some of your growing pains over some of the stuff. And we'll make sure guys go out and subscribe to their channel. Find Trevon in Outback and all the things that they're doing online. We'll make sure that you get an opportunity to check out what they're doing, and at the same time, I know Full Draw and some of those things. You got a film in there this year?
No. I've got 2 films in the hopper I'm working on. They won't be in Full Draw. One is a film about my best friends. As you get older in life and you look back and you realize, some of your best friends I've had since high school, actually since junior high, we hunted all the time together. We hadn't done anything in 30 years hunting together. So we planned a trip. And one of the guys drew a decent tag, and we went out and filmed it. And the film, he killed a great buck, but the film's more about us and our relationship. So I'm working on that. And then I have another film, a muzzleloader elk hunt in a premium unit where Tanner killed a great bull, that we'll be working on. So it'll probably we're probably looking at releasing it either later this year, or there's going to be a new hunting expo that'll be coming in the Denver area, and we're going to do a film, an actual film night, where we're going to bring a bunch of films together and show them at this expo. And so I might even premiere them there. I don't know. I got lots. I got a season and a half of footage we just haven't even had time to get into. So I got to get more stuff up on YouTube, but life gets in the way. And as I get older, I'm not going to be held to a standard where my family suffers because of my craziness to put something out once a week. I'm not going to do that, but I want it to be quality. So, we might drop a bunch of stuff right in a row and then let people, but Outback Outdoors on YouTube. We're trying, we're even putting some more technical stuff, more camera related gear stuff on there. So check it out there, but
cool. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, we appreciate it. And we'll look forward to following along and look forward to those films coming out as well. So be sure to go out and follow Trevon and all the stuff they're doing. And we'll see you guys next time. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanna be great.